Some artists devote their entire practice to creating something that other people find weird. There's no problem with this, as it promotes innovation and drives fields into new areas that can inspire some great works, but it could distract from an almost essential part of the creative process, which is striving to create something good. When you bring quality to the world of oddity, that's where the all-time surrealist pieces come out. Applying this to music, you might have an artist or band in mind that you like, despite being a little out there. Yet, I can promise you that no act has been able to combine weirdness and goodness like the band Ween. Throughout all the songs I talk about, you are going to hear some strange ones, and in my best attempt to get you to enjoy this band because they're actually really good, I'll try to ease you in with some more conventional excerpts that gradually become weirder. With that being said, the track Ocean Man is the only song that you might recognize unless you're already a fan of Ween, and it played a pretty significant role in the history of a cartoon that you're absolutely aware of.
Ocean man, take me by the hand, lead me to the land that you understand.
This is a great starting point for new fans as it retains many qualities that make the rest of Ween's music special and is pretty accessible, possibly their best song. The lyrics are nonsensical, but it doesn't matter because the melodies and overall instrumentation are all so good. As a standout track from their 1997 album, The Mollusk, part of Ocean Man's infamy stems from its inclusion at the end of 2004's The SpongeBob SquarePants movie, a fitting selection to cue the film's credits. Outside of the song simply fitting the theme of living in the ocean, the cartoon's creator, Steven Hillenburg, has called Ween's album a direct inspiration for the entire concept of SpongeBob. We'll have to return to the Mollusk record later, since some of its other tracks might scare you away, though it is one of the most acclaimed releases in their catalog and is entirely about the ocean. My personal favorite song that the band has released is What Diener Was Talking About.
The sun comes up and I'm all washed out. Is this what Dina was talking about?
The exterior of this track is dreamy and upbeat despite really being about intense feelings of panic, albeit conveyed in a wholesomely friendly and empathetic way. To explore this short excerpt that doesn't even reach the 2-minute mark, you'll have to be filled in with some basic Ween lore. Aaron Freeman and Mickey Melchiondo formed the band in 1984 and are the only permanent members throughout its lifetime. Yet neither of these names should matter to you anymore because as soon as Ween came to be, Aaron became Gene Ween and Mickey became Dean Ween, nicknamed Geener and Diener respectively. These new personas were forced on the two of them very early in their lives, as they were both only 14 when fate placed them in the same high school typing class, ensuring the band's creation. 10 years later, this track was brought to us, highlighting an irregular instance of Gene having an anxiety-filled day. This wasn't entirely foreign to him, though, as Dean would often have panic attacks that Gene would talk him through. Gene inevitably felt what it was like to be in his friend's shoes, hence finding What Diener Was Talking About. I personally knew nothing about this story despite hearing the song many times, though it is an interesting addition to an alternative rock track that simply sounds incredible. If you want a quality Ween record that is easy to get into, I'd suggest 2000's White Pepper, and more specifically its opener, Exactly Where I'm At.
I'm on stage, it's all an act. I'm really scared that I may fall back.
As you'll notice, this record is a more normal take on classic rock, the type of music that can be played in an arena. You don't know the full extent of this yet, but much of their music that preceded White Pepper was very bizarre, especially in the early 90s. That's why it's so rare that after cutting out much of the experimental aspects, Ween is still able to make songs that are this good. In my personal opinion, the best conventional rock relies heavily on instrumentals, especially the guitar, which is something that Gene and Dean both excel at. Exactly Where I'm At includes one of the best guitar solos I've ever heard to close the track, though all the instrumentation is incredible throughout. It's also super catchy, showing the Ween duo's knack at crafting melodies that stick with the listener. After all the genre bending and strangely creative ways the band takes its music, which you're soon to discover, it's exciting to hear them perfecting rock at its most grounded form. say a Ween fan had a favorite album that wasn't The Mollusk, odds are Quebec would be their pick. Its release marked the start of the end, coming out 4 years before Ween released their last project in 2007. Not only is it a quality album, but Quebec generally does the best job at showcasing their diverse sounds that they've mastered on earlier records. We'll come back to it later on, but two of my favorite songs off here are I Don't Want It and Tried and True.
At the dawn, I woke, I was alone, rising. I catch it.
The next song is going to be a little more divisive for first-time listeners. It's very smooth and groovy, though I could see the singing throwing some people off. It's an unbelievable vocal performance by Gene Ween, don't get me wrong, and it may convince you that this is an entirely new lead than the other songs, even though Gene takes the bulk of singing roles in most of their work. Existing Ween fans may have an idea of the track I'm talking about, which is Freedom of 76. Now is when we start diving into the exceedingly exciting avenues of their discography. Ween's highest scoring song on the music rating website albumoftheyear.org is a two-way tie between Ocean Man and an additional cut from Quebec, Transdermal Celebration.
Transdermal celebration gets you information. I can see them.
This song is incredible. I won't try to describe it in too much depth because a listen on your own will do it far more justice than anything I can say, so I'll just emphasize how great Dean's guitar play is on here and leave it at that. As a bonus fun fact about this track, the instrumental break after the first chorus was recorded in one take and in under 10 minutes. Dean broke into a storage locker that was used by legendary musician Carlos Santana to borrow his guitar and amp, a plan that was probably executed out of admiration for the man, though it could come across as a little disrespectful. At least it would have if Dean hadn't nailed this performance. The reason I held out on showing this song till now is that it's probably a little less accessible to the general public, but the people who like this harder, more psychedelic style will love it. Brace with me for this next section. Ween's first album came out in 1990 and was titled God, Ween, Satan, The Oneness. This bizarre title reflects a recurring theme in the band's music, unpredictability, with God and Satan being the ultimate extremes Ween shifts between, thus creating a uniqueness or oneness. If this idea seems strange to you, you might have to sit down for the next explanation in case you aren't already seated. The album cover of God, Ween, Satan, The Oneness depicts Almighty Boognish, who revealed itself to Gene and Dean in a shared vision when they were 14. The two didn't like each other much before this day, but through the Boognish, they were united, and both knew that it was their task to record this deity's ideas through song and spread its message. Unlike a lot of other bands, Ween's formation was far from a coincidence, and instead more akin to a necessary step. As far as debuts go, this album isn't bad at all. Strange, absolutely, as each of the 26 tracks is all over the place and can venture into some musical anomalies that have never been reached and might not be reached again. My pick from this album is probably a nice middle ground between conventional and completely insane music, and is also my personal favorite song from the album, Birthday Boy. None of these lyrics point towards the track being about a birthday until we hear Jeaner's family wishing him a happy birthday through messages left on an answering machine, denoting that he had turned 20. The bulk of this song is actually about a sad breakup, and the backstory becomes even more heartbreaking because Gene's ex had moved to California on his birthday, leaving him behind. It's a very emotional song with distorted vocals and guitar playing and not much else, making it very simple. Still, this is definitely a standout in their discography, displaying another impressive aspect of the duo as they were both only 20 when they released this album in 1990. Remember when I called Ween unpredictable? Well, only a year before they reached a personal milestone of commercial success with the Mollusk, Gene and Dean apparently wanted to try their hand at making country music, so they released an entire album full of it called 12 Golden Country Greats. To their credit, the project is pretty alright, and I'm not going to hype it up like some of their other records since most of its runtime comes across as more of a parody than a serious release, but the actual musical elements could be a lot worse than they are. Unless this sort of thing really intrigues you, I'll save you some time by including a short snippet of the song Piss Up a Rope, which is about pissing up a rope. As the title track of The Mollusk, the song that shares the same name is as psychedelic as the group gets. Gene tells a story about a man conversing with a boy about the child's discovery of a mollusk on the beach. The man asks the boy the typical questions that arise in such a situation, such as whether the mollusk speaketh of the Trinity, or if it can gaze at the sun with its wandering eye. The child assures the man that his shell can and does both of these things, and the two agree to be forever and to let forever be free. Meanwhile, some very dreamy and rich instrumentals fill out an extremely hallucinatory experience. I don't know how to describe Sketches of Winkle.
All the sketches of Winkle climb to the heavens in a fit of rage. Sketches of Winkle.
The song comes from Ween's sophomore project, The Pod, an album that is more experimental than anything I've heard before. Some fans swear by this record and think it's a masterpiece, while others are less impressed by it. I'll let you find out where you stand on the project and this on your own if you feel so inclined, and leave you with the warning that it is definitely out there.